You always believed that blood was the most unbreakable bond that existed. You were taught, from the first moment you could understand the world, that family is a safe haven, the place you can always return to when everything outside falls apart. But what if I told you that for a Scorpio, blood is sometimes just a perfect disguise for silent resentment? What if everything you believed about family loyalty was just the visible part of a much deeper spiritual mechanism operating behind the scenes of your life? There's a disturbing truth about how the universe, or the divine force you believe in, works in the lives of those born under this sign of deep water. By the end of this time we spend together, something that has always hurt in your heart, something you never had the courage to say aloud, will make sense in a way it never has before. You will understand why certain people who should love you unconditionally, were torn from your life. There's an invisible mechanism in the way you, Scorpio, relate to the world. You don't read what people say. You read what they hide. When you sit at the Sunday table with your family while everyone is laughing and sharing superficial stories, your eyes are capturing another frequency. You notice the subtle expression of disdain when you recount one of your victories. You feel the heavy, unfilled silence that settles in when you need support. You notice the absence of warmth in hugs and the excess of criticism disguised as constructive advice. You know, with an almost frightening certainty, who there truly loves you and who merely tolerates your presence out of convenience or social obligation. The great illusion of familiarity is believing that daily interaction means genuine love. For you, this illusion comes at a very high price. As a Scorpio, your nature demands absolute loyalty, depth, and devotion. When you love, you go to the very end. You defend, you protect, you guard your loved one's secrets as if they were sacred treasures. And by projecting this fierce loyalty, you secretly expect to receive the same in return. But the clash with reality happens when you realize that envy, competition, and resentment are not exclusive to declared enemies. They sleep under the same roof. They share the same last name. They know your weaknesses because they watched you grow up. And it is precisely because they know your fragilities that their lack of love hurts in such a devastating way. But what you often interpret as a painful rejection, as a punishment from fate, or as a failure of your own, is actually a movement orchestrated by something much greater. God does not allow a Scorpio to live forever in a lie. Your sign is ruled by naked truth, by the death of what is false and the regeneration of what is real. When there are people in your family who secretly do not love you, who root against your progress in the silence of their own rooms, a higher power begins to act to remove them from your path. The process is never painless. It's never a peaceful and amicable separation. Almost always, the breakup happens through a crisis, a misunderstanding that escalates out of proportion, an offense that crosses the line of the unforgivable, an accidental revelation of a betrayal of trust. The universe creates the perfect storm to expose the rotten roots of that relationship. And you, who so often tried to justify that person's actions, who swallowed words to maintain the peace, suddenly find yourself facing a situation where the only possible way out is the cut, the abrupt rupture, the famous and dreaded sting of Scorpio, which ends the cycle once and for all. But was it you who destroyed the bridge? Or did you simply recognize that the bridge was already in ruins long before you stepped on it? It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Wisdom That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Purposeful Life, is not a simple prediction manual, but rather a mirror for your deepest soul. It's a fundamental tool to help you stop blaming yourself for necessary separations and understand that your inner beacon for falsehood is a gift, not a curse. This material develops your ability to go deep, to not stop at the surface of appearances, something you understand instinctively, and helps you align your life with the people who truly belong to your soul tribe, not just your blood tribe. You, who are now processing these losses, who still feel that echo of guilt in your chest for having distanced yourself from those who share your blood, need to understand this mechanism to heal this wound. The discomfort you feel today is the pain of growth, of shedding the skin that has been shed. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. Tell me in the comments, what was the subtle behavior, that almost invisible attitude, that made you realize for the first time that someone of your own blood was silently rooting against you? The architecture of this divine separation follows very specific cycles in your life. Scorpio, you are not made of straight lines, you are made of spirals. Every time you go through a major personal transformation, whether prospering financially, assuming your power, or simply ceasing to accept emotional crumbs, the energy around you undergoes a seismic shock. It is at this exact moment of elevation that the masked figures in your family can no longer maintain their persona. Your light, your intensity, and your refusal to be diminished act like a relentless spotlight on their shadows. They cannot bear to see you rise from the ashes because your resilience reminds them of their own stagnation. And that is where God acts. The masks fall not because you went there and ripped them off, but because the weight of the lie has become unbearable in the face of your new frequency. Imagine a plant graft that the tree's trunk begins to reject. The sap simply stops flowing to that branch. The estrangement from relatives who secretly hate you happens like that. Suddenly, the connections diminish. The invitations stop arriving. Coldness settles in permanently. And you, with your keen perception, sense the cooling long before it materializes into concrete actions. Your defense mechanism, always alert, raises its shields. The great revelation here is realizing that this distancing imposed by life is the purest form of divine protection. The prolonged presence of someone who doesn't genuinely love you is a slow poison for your spirit. It would drain your energy, slow your progress, and plant doubts in your mind. God cuts the ties because you, Scorpio, have a profound mission that cannot be anchored by the mediocrity of family resentment. And when the pain of this break threatens to consume you, it's crucial to recognize the hidden spiritual purpose in this rupture. The divine wisdom that guides your zodiac sign to a purposeful life acts precisely on this crucial point of your understanding. This digital book teaches you how to transmute grief for the idealized family into real personal power. It shows you how to channel Scorpio's intensity to build unshakable emotional foundations, free from vampirism disguised as kinship. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. The great paradox you face is that, behind your reputation for being ruthless and vengeful, lies a heart of extreme sensitivity. Scorpio's armor is heavy, precisely because the skin beneath is thin. Cutting ties with family hurts you more than anyone else. You suffer not only from the loss of companionship, but also from the betrayal of expectations. Your obsessive mind replays scenes from the past, trying to find where the connection broke, where love turned into disguised envy. But understand this: the fault was never yours. No amount of love, giving, or sacrifices you could have made could have changed the heart of someone who had already decided not to love you. Their nature could not accommodate your greatness. Imagine you've spent years trying to cultivate a rare flower in toxic soil. You watered it, you cared for it, you exhausted yourself. The divine decision to uproot you from that soil isn't punishment. It's the only way to allow you to finally bloom. That relative who criticized your dreams with a cynical smile, that person who created intrigues behind the scenes to isolate you from others, who remained silent in the face of your victories and secretly rejoiced in your failures. The removal of each of these figures from your life is an act of mercy. The paradox is that the moment of greatest pain, the moment when the family shatters, is precisely the moment when you are returned to yourself. You realize you were carrying a weight that wasn't yours. You were paying an emotional toll to belong to a place that no longer fit you. This understanding liberates, but to reach it you walk through fire. It's the solitary journey through the emotional underworld where you confront the ghosts of primal rejection. The divine wisdom that guides your zodiac sign to a purposeful life is the compassionate map for this descent. Through this profound reading, you will learn to read between the lines of the universe and understand why the painful cuts were absolutely essential for your spiritual survival. The book shows you how not to harden your heart, but rather to focus your loyalty where it is reciprocated. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. By accepting that God removed certain people from your family because they secretly didn't love you, you reach a new level of existence. Your intuition ceases to be a source of anxiety and becomes your most reliable compass. You stop questioning the warnings your body gives you. You understand that true family is built on the resonance of souls, the transparency of affections, and loyalty that doesn't need to be demanded because it flows naturally. Your strength, Scorpio, lies in your infinite capacity for regeneration. Where there were toxic ties, you will build connections of power and truth. Where there was manipulative silence, you will bring healing words. The mystery of your life is not the pain you endured, but the beauty of the phoenix that always rises again, unscathed and stronger, from the ashes of the past. Your journey is not about what you lost, but about the sacred space that was cleared so that true emotional abundance could finally arrive. And so you walk on, knowing that those who stayed did so because they always belonged, and those who were taken by the purest divine providence. And it is in this new silence, left by the departure of these figures, that the true magic begins to happen in your vibrational field. Initially, the void, generated by the absence of those familiar voices, may seem strange, almost frightening. After all, you were deeply accustomed to the chronic noise of constant criticism, to the underlying tension in Sunday meetings, to the visceral need to defend yourself from elaborate attacks disguised as advice for your own good. The immediate peace may cause a certain emotional vertigo, but pay close attention, because this is not a silence of absence or abandonment. It is a silence of gestation. It is the cosmic womb preparing to give birth to the most authentic, untamed, and powerful version of yourself. Without the interference of those dense, doubtful, and envious frequencies that constantly undermined and sabotaged your vital energy, your auric field begins to expand exponentially. You begin to breathe differently, more deeply, filling your lungs not with anxiety, but with the absolute certainty of your sovereignty. The physical weight on your shoulders disappears. Intermittent insomnia, which was often just his primal survival instinct trying to keep him alert against betrayals within his inner circle, begins to give way to restorative, deep, and healing rest. As a being governed by Plutonian energy, the star of radical transformations, deconstruction, and rebirth, you always knew, deep in your ancestral soul, that painful cycles need to be ended so that the force of life can continue to flow. Cosmic energy does not accept half-truths. It does not accept superficial bandages applied to deep, festering wounds. The alchemy that runs through your astrological veins demanded that this emotional infection be completely purged from your destiny. Those family members who smiled to your face but plotted your downfall behind your back were, metaphorically, a toxin in your existential system. And the universe, operating like a divine surgeon, relentless, focused, and profoundly loving, used the scalpel of undeniable truth to cut the evil at its root, no matter who it hurt and how it hurt. The surgery of the soul does not use anesthesia for the awakened consciousness. You were forced to watch the masks crumble one by one. She had to listen to the lies whispered between the lines of omissions. She had to endure the brutal impact of betrayal coming precisely from those who should have been her unwavering safe haven. However, this sharp, lacerating and lonely pain was the exact price of her existential liberation. Society, imprisoned by its limiting beliefs, emotional blackmail and outdated moralisms, often dictates cruel rules to us. It tells us that blood is blood, that the biological family must be maintained and tolerated at all costs, that we must forgive repeated abuses and forget backstabbing just to keep up appearances during the holiday season. But you, endowed with an innate spiritual X-ray vision, now know that this is one of the greatest karmic traps that exist. Maintaining false appearances is a direct insult to your sharp intelligence and the purity of your essence. Forgiveness, in your new, expanded vision, does not mean in any way permission for the other to return and continue to hurt you. You forgive to free yourself, to release the invisible anchor, to untie the blind knot that bound your luminous energy to their darkness. But you never give them back the remote control of your peace of mind. Your forgiveness is a heavy oak door that closes gently from the outside, turning the key to ultimate protection, not a passive invitation to return. You have understood, in a cellular and visceral way, that the concept of family is not an inalienable and absolute right acquired merely at the moment of birth. It is a supreme privilege that is built and maintained through constant respect, honor, mutual care, loyalty, and transparency of intentions. Whoever lacks the moral and emotional capacity to honor the sacred space of their heart immediately loses the right to inhabit it, even if by genetic chance they share the same surname, the same childhood roof, or the same family tree. It is crucial to delve into the true anatomy of the aversion they secretly harbored against you. It is liberating to realize that it was never, in fact, about your mistakes. It wasn't about your natural human flaws, your stumbles, or the imperfections we all carry. It was, paradoxically, about the magnitude of your light, your vibrational intensity, and your unwavering refusal to live a lukewarm, submissive, hypocritical, and superficial life served as a blinding and unbearable mirror for them. People who chose the path of convenient lies, who cowardly settled into empty relationships and mediocre dreams they never dared to realize, cannot bear the physical and energetic presence of someone who has the courage to tear the veil of illusion with every breath. Your mere existence confronted them with everything they lacked the bravery to be. When you spoke the raw truth, even without the slightest intention to offend or hurt, your brutal honesty echoed like a deafening and destructive thunderclap in the fragile house of cards of illusions they had built to survive. They secretly didn't love you and didn't root for you because you represented in flesh and blood the definitive breaking of the toxic pattern they tried at all costs to perpetuate and justify for generations. You incarnated as the healer of your ancestral lineage, and as happens with every great family healer, your first and most painful role was that of scapegoat. They systematically projected onto you all the shadows, frustrations, and resentments they cowardly refused to face in their own mirror. They labeled you with the most unfair words: difficult, complicated, too intense, rebellious, problematic, when, in the stark reality of the facts, you were the only lucid and awake being suffocating within an emotionally unhealthy and claustrophobic environment. Now that the stage of your life has been completely emptied of these oppressive presences and invisible shackles, look deeply within yourself. Your inner child, the one who for years cried hidden in the damp, dark corners of that house of the past, anxiously waiting for crumbs of love, recognition, or affection that never came genuinely or without abusive demands, can finally be embraced by you. You today, with your expanded consciousness, have become exactly the loving father and protective mother you always desperately needed and never had. You now stand as the unwavering and fierce guardian of this divine child. All that Herculean strength you once spent exclusively erecting defensive shields against the attacks of your own family has ceased to be drained. All that inexhaustible reserve of energy is now actively channeled into building and expanding your personal empire. And understand this well. When I mention the word empire, I'm not just referring to the accumulation of material possessions or brilliant professional achievements, although these will certainly come as an inevitable consequence. I'm talking about building a majestic empire of emotional integrity, deeply healthy relationships, unbreakable boundaries, and a peace of mind that is not negotiable with anything or anyone. Have you ever stopped to notice in your moments of silence how colossal, creative, and magnetic your energy is when it stops being vampirized by emotional vampires who cleverly disguise themselves as beloved relatives? Your inventive capacity, the sharp clarity of your reasoning, your relentless focus on work, and your innate ability to attract the most incredible synchronicities begin to multiply 1,000-fold. The feeling is that suddenly the entire universe, with palpable joy, throws open all the monumental doors that previously seemed cemented and jammed. This happens simply because your basic vibrational frequency has radically changed. You have abandoned once and for all the dense and heavy frequency of mere emotional survival against predators and have rightfully embraced the light, bright, and unstoppable frequency of absolute sovereignty over your own destiny. Also observe how your own physical body and biological structures begin to react to this monumental deliverance. Your central nervous system, which for years has been on high alert, operating almost exclusively in the exhausting fight, freeze, or flight mode, paranoidly awaiting the next passive-aggressive comment at dinner, the next deliberate and malicious exclusion from an important event, or the next occasion when they would maliciously twist your sincere words to paint you as the ungrateful villain of the story, finally begins to turn off the alarm sirens.